And we are live. Hello, welcome to another episode of Cinema Savvy News. I'm Chris Garner, joined tonight with Take the Hour. And unfortunately, no George tonight, we don't think. He's currently at Spider-Man Homecoming. He's seeing that tonight. And of all weeks where we have Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them news, George, the absolute Harry Potter and Hogwarts and Wizarding World aficionado that he is, he can't join us tonight for that news. So we're going to do our level best to cover all this week in movie news, including that news, as well as some trailer talk towards the end and what's going on with the box office. So, Tate, do you want to go into the first news item, or should I? We have to take the plunge into the Wizarding World.
I want to first say that George is definitely not at Spider-Man Homecoming. He's sleeping. He's always sleeping. That's what he does, this podcast, and then he sleeps. He doesn't actually have a life outside of it.
Hashtag sleepy
okay. Okay. So, unveiled by Pottermore, a bunch of Fantastic Beasts news, including major plot and character news. The story will be set in 1927, set months after the first film, Grindelwald escaped, or will escape from MACUSA. And has gained followers. Dumbledore and Newt will work together to take on Grindelwald and his followers. Yeah, I don't really know what to think about this. I thought the first Fantastic Beasts film was entertaining. It didn't hold anything up to the previous Harry Potter franchise. But even though it's another Fantastic Beasts film, we should expect it. I really don't want another film set in America.
Yeah,
I feel like the only thing that I liked about it being set in America was what was the side character who followed Newt around?
Was it Jacob?
Jacob, yeah. He was the only charming and endearing character, and I'm assuming he won't be in the next film.
He is actually, because there's some even more news for it as well. The four main characters from the first movie are coming back, as is Credence. I think he was played by Ezra Miller. I think that was Ezra Miller's character.
That was Ezra Miller, yeah.
There's some new characters too. There's been a bounty hunter called Grimson being confirmed. A Wizarding Circus will also be featured. Newt's older brother will also debut, and an aura and a war hero. And going back to your point, you don't want it just to be set in New York. They're going to be jumping all around the globe in this one. We're going to have scenes set in London, Paris, and New York. Now, some of those might be like a quick cut to the Wizarding World in London, or, the Wizarding World in Paris. But I think that they're going to make London and certainly Paris a bigger focus in this one than New York. New York will go back to Jacob, maybe. In all honesty, I really wanted George on this because he knows all about the lore of Harry Potter, because he had some concerns about the dates in which Dumbledore and Grindelwald are going to come to a head and going to meet, because apparently they're different in the book. But J.K. Rowling's still penning the script, and she came up with the world, so she clearly knows what she's doing with the series. I didn't like the first movie. I watched it once and I was kind of bored all the way through. It was kind of this drab and dreary experience. And like you, I only cared about Jacob. He was the only sort of, I know they're wizards, but the only human character, the only person with any kind of personality or charm to them. I'll definitely give it a watch before this new one comes out so that I'm all caught up. But yeah, it really didn't leave any kind of impression on me personally. I'm not sure how much of an impression it left on people that are fans of this series and fans of Harry Potter.
I wasn't really interested too much in this news, hence why I didn't really know much about it until I read it off the screen. But this kind of concerns me that they're bringing back Credence, and I like that it's going to be set in different places. Maybe like a Wizarding Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. That'd be fun. However, Credence, the whole kind of gravity behind the first film was that in the end, a life was lost and it was at the hands of Grindelwald. I don't like the fact that he's going to be back. That completely takes away kind of the heaviest part of the film, which was a person can be saved and he isn't in the end. That annoys me, actually. It takes away one of the greatest parts of the film, where you have the entire fight between Newt and Grindelwald, and it comes at the expense of Credence as a character, probably one of the more tragic characters from Harry Potter. So What does that mean? I mean,
see, I didn't really like think that much into the story when I was watching it. I just thought, why is Eddie Redmayne fighting the black smoke monster from the end of Lost? That's all I could think of watching that scene. As I said,
spoilers to the end of Lost.
Spoiler, or whatever. um, everyone went to see this movie that was a fan of Harry Potter, and if you haven't seen it already, chances are you're probably not going to see the movie anyway. But, I mean, this is going to be a 5-movie series, so it's all been planned out ahead of time, and we'll have to see how it goes. But that's all the major news that's been confirmed for that. Moving on, we are taking a trip back to the 80s with this one. So Top Gun 2, or as it's now called, Top Gun Maverick, has a release date. The release date is July 12th, 2019, which is going to be coming out right in between Spider-Man Homecoming 2, which is coming out July 5th. And Lion King, Disney's live-action remake, or live-action, it's all going to be in CGI, remake of The Lion King, July 19th. And apparently Kaczynski is set to direct. Very awkward release date for it, I don't think. I mean, Spider-Man Homecoming 2, we don't know how much this one's going to make, but I think it's going to be somewhat of a success. And Lion King's just going to be an absolute powerhouse for Disney. So even if it does do well that first week, it's going to have a major drop-off. And do people really want this movie? I know I certainly don't. I'm a huge fan of Top Gun. It's one of my favorite films from the 80s. I went to see a rescreening of it last year. It was absolutely phenomenal seeing it again. But it's a film, I've talked about it before on the channel, but it's such a product of its time that I can't even imagine a modern sequel or retelling of that story in any way. Just let it be. We don't need a sequel.
The way I see Top Gun and the way I'd see a kind of sequel is any of the flight sequences focusing purely on humans in Independence Day. Take away the fact that they're fighting aliens and stuff like that. The kind of imagine that the aliens were instead other planes.
Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff that I want to see for a Top Gun sequel. But I feel like it's going to be it's just going to be a very generic film unless they set it in the 80s and stuff like that. To be honest, the only thing that would excite me about seeing that film is the soundtrack. See what they pick. There's been a lot of 80s kind of people going back to 80s for soundtracks with recent Baby Driver, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, going for 80s and 90s kind of vibe. So I don't know what this is even going to go for. Because like you said, the first film is a complete product of its time. It's one of those films where you go, look, you wouldn't be able to remake it now because it would just make no sense.
Yeah. And there's certainly a lot of scenes from that first movie that haven't aged particularly well. I like them because they're charming and just really cheesy, but like the volleyball scene, like you couldn't do scenes like that nowadays in a film.
Actually, to be honest, out of all the times, you could probably do that now perfectly fine. And it'd probably be given like a U rating instead of like a 15 or an 18.
Yeah, it was a 15. It was a 15, the original. I can't remember if it had a bit of language in there. It probably did. But I'll have to wait and see. I'll wait till a trailer comes out, and I know that I'm going to have some level of hype with it because that's what studios want you to have. They want you to have that hype to get your ass in the seat to see another Top Gun movie, but I don't think it's going to do well. And I mean, I don't know if Tom Cruise is going to be the only person coming back for it. I've heard no one else. I don't know if Kelly McGillis is coming back, who was the female lead actress, in Top Gun. I think she's kind of washed her hands with it at this point. So. Is Tom Cruise even a big box office draw at this point? We saw The Mummy hardly made anything. So
The Mummy wasn't even a good film as well.
Yeah.
I feel like he's starting to lose his action credibility. Outside of the Mission Impossible franchise is still going strong-ish. I say ish because there are other franchises which are probably going to rise up and take it over. Kingsman being the main threat here. Especially with there was a very, very brief trailer. I wouldn't even call it trailer. It was really advertisement for the clothes worn in Kingsman, like a suit company advertising or something like that. And they showed a bit more of the clips, and it just looks as good as the first film, if not better. So that may be where the spy genre is going. Let's move on to a different genre. Let's move on to superhero films. Yay!
Every week.
For me, this is devastating news. They've already their Fox sets to release dates for 6 X-Men films. These are on June 7th, 2019, November 22nd, 2019, March 13th, 2020, June 26th, 2020, October 2nd, 2020, and March 5th, 2021. So we're going to get 3 X-Men films in 2020. That's I don't I'm not even going to go into that yet, seen as at the moment it's mixed reviews. People love Deadpool. I'd happily say that people love Deadpool. There was some people who didn't like Deadpool, like George, who also doesn't like La La Land. I don't understand that. But like that did get some mixed reviews. Some people saying it's swearing and it's like cursing for the sake of swearing and cursing and hoping for a laugh. The kind of formula that South Park went for the first 12 seasons. And then we have the actual X-Men franchise with Apocalypse. I thought it was passable. Almost everyone else thought it was devastatingly bad. Logan, a brilliant return to form, possibly one of the best films of the year. Possibly one of the greatest superhero films of all time as well. However, that's a spin-off. And there is a rumor going around that there's going to be a spin-off of the main character, Laura, from that film. Which, first of all, I don't want to see. I don't think anyone wants to see. She's a cool character in a single standalone film, and just like the Fantastic Beasts news, it's going to completely take away the weight of the character. Unless they do a grown-up version of her, which is currently in the comics right now. She has a couple of cool storylines. If they're going straight on and seeing her survive with her new people, or going for a prequel of her being in Mexico, I don't want to see that. I really do not want to see that.
I'm kind of torn. I mean, they haven't announced any of the titles of these films yet. It's literally just the release dates, and it's just got people speculating as to what they could be. So some people think that one could be a Deadpool 3. I think that's probably likely. Deadpool 2 made a lot of money. As you said, people loved it, and I'm sure that Deadpool 2 will do the same. Probably not the same amount, but I think it will still get a lot of interest. So I definitely see Deadpool 3 on the cards. This whole X-Force thing, they're going to dilute the X-Men franchise down. Now, I'm a big fan of the X-Men franchise, even through the good and through the bad. I've stuck with it, but I do think that X-Men Apocalypse was a huge gut punch to the momentum that series was building back up.
Here's the thing which I see. The X-Men is a good franchise, but the main character in the X-Men, and someone who you've almost always, I'm saying almost, have to have in your films, is Wolverine.
That's a problem with the filmmakers since the beginning, because X-Men's always been a group film.
There's
a group series. Sorry.
One film, which actually 2 films out of how many they've done, where he hasn't been a main character in, and it's been okay. And those were Deadpool. Some people consider done like he still appears in the film, and then like X-Men First Class, where he
still appears in the film.
And I just don't see it doing as well. He was in Apocalypse, but he really shouldn't have been.
I think everyone felt really tired at that point. Even fans were just like rolling their eyes, like, "Oh God, do we really need Wolverine again?"
It's just like we've got an X-Men film. Stick Wolverine in it. So just even if you stick him in for one scene, and it worked as a comedy element in First Class, but they actually tried to give him a reason for being there in Apocalypse, and it just broke down immediately.
I don't mind if Hugh Jackman does a cameo as himself in Deadpool 2, stuff like that's fine, because even though Deadpool is technically in the same continuity and universe as X-Men, I always kind of see it as a, it's like jumped off. It is like very much like a spin-off and a kind of what if he was in the universe. X-Force, I really don't know anything about, so I'm going to have to just see that as it comes out.
To be honest, if we're pitching a new X-Men film here, aside from the ideas they have already, I want to see just another straight-up Professor Xavier versus Magneto film. I want to see the play between Michael Fassbender and oh my god, name
McAvoy, James McAvoy.
James McAvoy. I want to see them either team up together and have to kind of put aside their differences and finally fight a common cause, or I want to see them kind of play a game of chess, like out on screen, not an actual physical game of chess, just like kind of playing pawns off and then finally facing off against each other. because I feel like that's an interesting character study, which they kind of dip their toe into the water on. They've done their origins, but they haven't completely explored the years and years of comics, which has built up the relationships between those two characters, which might be one of the most interesting relationships between two characters in all of comic book history. Two friends who fall on opposing sides and are ever in fighting against each other, but aim for the same common ground. Just have different ways of doing it. You have so much to work with there. Why are they not taking up the opportunity to do it?
See, here's the thing, because if we're talking about, we've just had a comment from Auburn saying, should the entire X-Men series be scrapped at this point and then rebooted down the line?
They've already got a TV show at the moment, haven't they? Legion. I don't know how that's going.
Yeah, but, I've heard that's actually meant to be pretty damn good. I haven't watched that yet, although, again, that's not in continuity with the films, because continuity has never been a strong suit with the X-Men franchise. But here's the thing, with X-Men First Class, when they made that movie, I thought that was going to be a direct reboot of the entire series. I went into that thinking, God, I love the original. Well, I like the original 2 films. I didn't like Last Stand. But I was still attached to all those characters, and I was kind of went in with a really grouchy attitude, like they don't need to reboot X-Men. It was great. Why they're messing with it? And I loved it. It was a huge surprise, and I was like, you know what? I'm completely on board with this reboot. But as soon as Wolverine cameoed in that movie, and the intro of that film was the same, you know, Auschwitz Holocaust thing going on in the beginning of the first X-Men film, I was like, okay, this is actually a prequel. This is taking place in the same universe. Days of Future Past, we get the original cast back, so they've kind of missed their chance to reboot it at this time. And now they're wanting to, you know, instill all these new characters in with like Cyclops and a young Jean Grey and everything, and kind of repeat what they've already done to get it to the point that we're already familiar with. They really needed to reboot it with a young Cyclops and a young Jean Grey as a new franchise and build up from there, but they've missed their opportunity. It seems like they're just going to keep this thing going and going as much as they can at this point. But in terms of like, if they do a Laura spin-off, Wolverine's daughter from Logan, I'm fine with that because I thought the actress was absolutely phenomenal. However, I don't want it within the time frame of that, within 4 years. I want it like 10 years. I want to see the same actress get older and age into this character. I want them to take their time with it, but it seems like they've got a lot of faith in the X-Men franchise and that people will still keep coming back to see all these movies, whether they will or not, especially by 2021. I mean, I did the math. I'm going to be 28 by that point. I'm going to be like an old man. I'm going to be old man Logan by the time this movie comes out.
I want to point out that they've got 3 films spread out across 2020. They got one which is March, so just before summer blockbuster season, one dead in the middle of blockbuster season, and then they've got one in October, so that's heading towards Oscar season. So maybe that October one will do best out of all 3. I personally feel like they're going to have to play heavily now on when they release their films. Their films probably don't have a big enough draw to carry their own name anymore. So putting it in the middle of summer blockbuster season, unless it's Deadpool, is going to be like, Deadpool's the name which would draw people in immediately. Like people go, oh yes, Deadpool, yeah, I'll go see it. However, X-Men itself, people are starting to wean away from the franchise. Casual cinema goers don't really distinguish between Deadpool and the X-Men. They're happy to see a cameo, they're happy to see it in the same universe, but as soon as it's got X-Men plastered on the title, they don't trust it as much. And therefore, I feel like they're going to have to play a bit more tactically on when they release their films. So it's in a completely open schedule, not like the Top Gun one sandwiched immediately in between Homecoming 2, a Spider-Man film, like one of the most famous superheroes of all time, and Lion King, possibly one of the most famous musicals of all time. So you've got,
And the last thing I'll say on it as well with X-Men is that I liked when there was quite like at least 3 years between each one of these films, so that when a new X-Men film rolled around, even though if the film didn't turn out to be good, it felt special. It felt like, oh yeah, X-Men's back. That's why Days of Future Past was so good, because we had a huge wait from First Class. We had quite a decent amount of wait for Days of Future Past, but then they followed it up like 2 years after with Apocalypse, and it felt really quick and rushed. And now with all these release dates, I know it's not all going to be X-Men movies, it's going to be spin-offs and stuff like that, but it feels like it's too much, and that's kind of the last thing I have to say on it. But still, we're sticking with X-Men news for this one. So X-Men New Mutants, which is the next one coming out after Is it before or after Dark Phoenix? I think it's after.
I believe it's after Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, so Rosario Dawson was meant to be in the movie. She has now exited the film, and Alice Braga has been brought in. James McAvoy is also expected to appear in the film, and it has a release date of April 2018. Oh, so it is coming out before Dark Phoenix. I'm unfamiliar with Alice Braga. I've just checked her credits. She was apparently in City of God, which I know is on a lot of lists for best films of all time. Haven't seen that one. Tate, you probably have.
It's one of the best foreign films of all time.
Yeah. She was also in I Am Legend as well with Will Smith and another bunch of stuff like that. But I'm not familiar with her. But, you know, she seems like she's a good talent, so she's fine to bring into the X-Men universe.
Okay, moving on to the next bit of news. Avengers 4 will end Marvel's original 22-film story arc. So we're now not going in phases. We're going in arcs.
Where do you go after Thanos? Yeah.
So what happens is first of all, we have individual films. Then we have sequels to individual films. Then we have the different Marvel phases. Now we have Marvel's first story arc. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
There's 22 films in their first story arc, which means that Thanos is going to be the end of the 22-film story arc, which means they're going to start another story arc, which is probably going to be another 22 films. So what this really is Marvel saying there's going to be another 22 films made after Avengers 4, and it's going to be based on a new villain and probably with the same characters. So go enjoy that instead.
It means read those fucking comic books, buy your fucking cinema ticket, and sign up for 22 fucking more movies, fanboy. And you're going to love it, and you're going to give us money. We're going to keep pumping this shit out until you're sick to death of it. Okay, so Feige basically said while he was promoting, I was going to say Iron Man Homecoming, it pretty much is, Spider-Man Homecoming, that the original 22 movie arc ends with the Untitled Avengers film in May of 2019. And then 2 months later, it will be Peter Parker and Spider-Man that ushers us into the aftermath and how things will proceed from there.
So we know that, guys, Spider-Man survives the Infinity Slaughter or whatever it's called, where he goes, you're cut, you're cut, you're safe, you're cut, you're cut, you're cut, you're cut, you're safe, to all of the Marvel characters. Should we, I mean, we're going through this news quite quickly. Should we very quickly just kind of spell out who we think is going to die? Should we do a Deadpool?
Sure. I think Iron Man will probably die because he has been the mentor figure, and then that will propel Spider-Man into maybe even becoming the new leader of the team himself, because Spider-Man, I think Marvel want to try and get him to be that poster boy for Marvel again, because he very much used to be until Iron Man took off in 2008. I think there's a good chance that Cap might die as well. I think that might be a touching moment if it's like a Toy Story 3 moment in the furnace where Iron Man and Captain America died together.
Hands and nodded at each other.
And
then the Claw comes and saves them.
Yeah, I think Bucky will become the new Captain America after he passes. I thought that was going to be how Civil War ended.
Okay,
want to delay it.
Let's be honest here. It's probably going to be easier to do this. Who do you think is going to survive? Because I reckon Bucky will survive. Obviously, Spider-Man surviving.
Dude, if you're going to list all the characters that are going to survive, we're going to be here till next week. So it's probably just easier to say the ones that are going to die.
I genuinely think that they're going to kill off, like, Hulk's probably going to be killed off. I think Thor's going to be killed off. I think Loki might be killed off. They're going to give the Thor mantle to Natalie Portman or something stupid like that. Or he may even kill off Natalie Portman, who knows. I think Star-Lord will survive, but the rest of the Guardians of the Galaxy will be pretty... Rocket will survive. And that'll be it.
They'll leave them all because they'll want to make Guardians of the Galaxy 4.
No, because here's the thing. You've got two characters there with heavy links to Thanos, and I think both of them are pretty much dead on paper. I think Thanos will see Groot as a very large threat, seeing as he can just kind of rebuild himself, and he'll probably incinerate him or something like that with an Infinity Stone. Maybe Groot will sacrifice himself and say, like, Marvel Universe is Groot or something stupid like that.
He's already done that, though. They'll just be repeating shit at that point. I don't know who's going to live and who's going to die. I do think that Iron Man and Captain America definitely have a chance of bowing out, especially because Robert Downey Jr. has been doing it. Well, next year it'll be 10 years.
Yeah.
And we also need to get to the point where we have to think about that they're going to be given contracts and renewing contracts for ridiculous amounts of picture deals. And I don't know if they want to do it, because I know that Chris Evans said a while back that he wanted to get into directing, but it seems like he's quite tied down with these movies at the moment.
Coming soon, Iron Man 32.
Yeah, oh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Speaking of more Marvel news, and also characters that have seemingly died and come back to life, Nick Fury, Samuel Jackson's character in the MCU, has been rumored to appear in Captain Marvel, which is a movie that I completely forgot was coming out until I've literally read this news.
Oh, yeah. Captain Marvel is my most excited Marvel film that I'm looking forward to. Genuinely. I think it's going to be phenomenal. And especially with the acting talents of Brie Larson on the helm, I really do think that's going to be seriously good. Maybe even as good as Wonder Woman.
I think it will be generic as fuck. The usual cookie cutter formula that Marvel's pumped out in all of their movies since 2008 will bring nothing new to the table. Wonder Woman's got there first. Wonder Woman will have done it better. Brie Larson might be fine, but you know there's going to be a villain in there played by a phenomenal talent that's going to just be wasted throughout. That's pretty much how all these movies go. Maybe that's cynical me, and I'll wait till a trailer comes out, but that's pretty much how it's all going to go now until 2021 or beyond.
Are we going to get an Old Man Fury, or is he going to die?
Well, if they do kill him, will you give a shit? Because they tried to do that in Winter Soldier, and then they brought him back to life.
No, it's the I can't remember what TV show people were trying to explain it on, but it was bringing a character back to life. It wasn't Game of Thrones, and then you lose the weight of that character dying because you've already seen them die before. You've already gone through the emotions. Yeah, and therefore the act of that character or anything they've done is tainted. You don't feel as much emotions. So actually, at this stage, I'd be more surprised. Actually, it'd probably be better for the universe if he did live. Just to kind of usher in or help kind of keep control of S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever it's called now, Hydra or whoever's in control of it. Well, go on.
I was just going to say, emotions have never been the strong suit of the Marvel movies at this point. Even if they skirt towards it, then they kind of throw a funny in there to make it, to soften the blow of the emotion.
You know what? We're going to have an amazing... Okay, let's talk about the two major love interests in the Marvel universe. First of all, we have I don't even know how to describe this. Black Widow and Hulk, which literally was explained in one film. Then we have Captain America and whichever version of Agent Carter he wants to bang, whether it's the granddaughter or the granny. So yeah. Oh, and also, obviously, he wants to be with Bucky. That's always been a thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, called a rain check on Agent Carter's drink because he'd rather be frozen in ice than live without his best friend.
Somewhere out there, Tate, you have inspired millions of fan fiction writers.
Chris, it would be really sad to say that through browsing Reddit, I already don't know that they don't exist, but... Reddit's a weird place sometimes. Stuff like that appears on the front page for no apparent reason. Moving on.
Yes.
Sony has approached Edgar Wright for a Baby Driver sequel. He's going to say no to that immediately because previously interviewed, the only sequel that he would ever think of doing would be to Hot Fuzz. And he said that is very unlikely in the first place. So that's avoid news because that's never going to happen.
I personally don't want a sequel, and I'm not going to give away my thoughts here. Me and you did a review on Baby Driver, which you can check in our previous videos. We spoke like 40 minutes on that movie, spoiler free and spoiler, so please do check that out. But essentially, with how the film ends, I don't want a sequel, and I don't think you'd be able to recapture the magic of the style that he brought within that first movie. So I think a sequel would definitely be a mistake. It's not to say I'd be completely opposed to it, because I did love Baby Driver, but I'd rather the movie remain self-contained. And although I'm not a huge Edgar Wright fan, I do appreciate that all of his movies have been original individual movies, and I'd like to see him continue that trend onwards. He's a guy that's got many, many ideas, and I'm sure he's got many fantastic films on the horizon. And I think Baby Driver is a good signifier as to what we can expect from him now as a director. Before, I've always said that he stuck to a specific genre and like broken it down to the foundations and poked fun at it. But Baby Driver felt like his first proper movie. You know, he's done like cop and action films and buddy cop drama things. He's done zombie films. I don't know what The World's End was like, and
it was like a it was a film which is basically all about cracking up in a cold one with the boys. That's all it was.
And I mean, Scott Pilgrim, although that was based on a graphic novel, you know, that was about video games and stuff. But Baby Driver felt like his first proper movie. In short, though, I don't want a sequel to Baby Driver. I'd like to see him just continue to make something new.
Yeah. And wait a second, I'm just replying to comics.
We have some Dunkirk news next, I believe, which I believe has been confirmed now because basically George writes the plan out for this, and Dunkirk's one of his most anticipated moves of the year. So I'm assuming that this news is true. We do like to get all of our facts straight before we jump on the news. But Dunkirk has apparently been confirmed as a 12A certificate. That's going to be a PG-13 in the US and is clocking in at 147 minutes long. And tickets go on sale this Friday. That's more like it from the running time.
I wouldn't take that as gospel because I've just done a very quick search and it's still saying every news outlet I've seen is still saying 2 hours. Like, so.
I'm going to check really quickly now. If you want to talk a little bit about your hype for Dunkirk.
Dunkirk. I think it's going to be a good film. But, and this is a massive but, it's weird. With war films, they're very hit and miss. You can have some war films which are complete blown out the water success. Thinking Saving Private Ryan. Then you have some which are quite historically accurate, like Fury, and they end up being like shunned and stuff like that for either being too boring, going on too long, or just not having enough in the film to excite people. He was expecting an extremely long run time and it going to be one of those kind of epic films. But I still don't know what the runtime is of the film. I mean, we're just checking now whether it's going to be 147, which is closer to 3 hours, or whether it's going to be closer to 2 hours.
There's one on filmlist.co.uk which has it down for 147 minutes.
Maybe then.
Some places are saying 1 hour 47 minutes.
Yeah, so I think it might be 1 hour 47 minutes because it's meant to be one of his shortest films today.
Yeah.
So maybe that is the case.
We will have to take that up with George, and we will report next week on the correct running time.
Apparently, he is on his way back from sleeping.
Okay.
Homecoming.
Or sleeping during Homecoming.
He seems to be awake now, which is good enough. So I'm going to let you take this because this is probably exciting news for you.
Yes. Okay. So Sylvester Stallone, one of my favorite action heroes of all time, he likes dropping a lot of hints on his Twitter about upcoming films. I know a few years ago he dropped a picture for Cobra, and I thought Cobra 2 was going to be announced. It hasn't been announced yet, so take this for what it's worth. But a couple of days ago, he uploaded a photoshopped image of Ivan Drago, the villain from Rocky IV, facing down against Creed with the caption, "Here's a chance to stretch your imagination. History will always repeat itself in one form or another. Just got to be ready. Sins of the Father. Hashtag Creed 2. Hashtag Agent Nikki C. Hashtag Rocky Balboa." Now, what this means for anyone who doesn't know is that for the sequel to Creed, and Creed is one of my, it might actually be my favorite soft reboot of all time, favorite spin-off, whatever you want you call it, or just sequel in general. I thought Creed was fantastic. Creed might be facing down. I don't think he's going to be facing down against Ivan Drago again, but maybe the son of Ivan Drago. Will Creed be able to take his revenge out of the mix in that Ivan Drago killed his father? A lot of turmoil. I don't know if this is taking it back to the cheesy realms of Rocky IV, though, which I'm completely fine with because I love Rocky IV. It's one of my favorite from the series. But Creed seemed like it was going more of the trajectory of Rocky Balboa, which was a lot more grounded, a lot more serious, taking it back to basics. Does that mean I'd be opposed to a son of Ivan Drago in the film? Not at all. I think that would be amazing, and I trust Stallone with the range of this franchise.
Let's put Rocky Four. Actually, let's put Rocky Four on a plate here. The main premise of that film is based around let's have a boxing match to end the Cold War.
Yes.
Now there is tension, obviously, but there is no Cold War currently taking place between America and Russia.
I don't know.
There are scandals galore, but
yes.
I feel like that doesn't play on the same kind of issues that the Cold War was.
This will be more like a revenge-based one.
This is going to be a revenge based on the plot of a film which is ridiculously cheesy, but it probably is the only Rocky film that I can actually watch without getting bored. I just want to,
dude.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
You're gonna have to rewatch those films.
I am a huge fan of sports films. I do not think that Rocky is the poster child for them. I think that it is lacking in many areas. I feel like it isn't Stallone's best performance that he can give. It seems very lazy in parts, and it's an endearing film. It's a film which gets you motivated and pumped and rooting for the underdog, but I just don't like the character of Rocky that much. And that doesn't help with the films. He isn't the most likable character. And because of that, I never really end up rooting for him. I usually end up rooting for the villain in every single film I've seen Rocky in.
I can't agree with any of those statements.
It's one of those things where if I want to see a sport film, I want to see sport realism, and I want to see either an underdog story or I want to see some kind of battle test will. And you see kind of the underdog story battle test will thing in Rocky. You don't see the other side to it. You don't see the real grit realism. Apparently you do see that in Creed, so I need to get back on that. But it really does come down to Rocky 4 felt like watching a game show version of the first film, and it made it so much better with all the cheesy montages, the robot.
Well, Tate, you just said that, you like realism. And then you say that realism is boring in Rocky, but you like it when it's dumb, like in Rocky 4.
Yep, realism has a line to cross, and that is where you enter into the Space Jam realm. And you get films like that, films which go out of their way to be that kind of film, instead of Rocky, which aims to be serious, but really palms off to be a product of its time.
Oh, I think the story of the first Rocky is timeless. I think it's absolutely timeless. I like Rocky 2 as well. I think that's a solid sequel. Rocky 3.
If you want to see better boxing movies, go see Cinderella Man and go see Raging Bull.
No, Raging Bull is one of the most overrated fucking movies I've ever seen in my life, Tate.
They give you a true experience of what it's like to be in the ring and out the ring as a boxer.
But it's boring. It's boring because of that. That film has its own place. Rocky is an underdog story. That's all you're going into it for.
This goes back to the argument about Moneyball. I think Moneyball is a masterpiece in screenwriting and retelling of events. You think it's extremely boring because you don't get the kind of sporting things that go behind it. I think that you probably get the sporting things behind boxing. It's a reasonably simple enough sport. However, there are more interesting films.
I think you'll find it's a very complex sport, actually, boxing.
It's a complex sport, but I think that you do know kind of rules of boxing and the boxing side of things, as you have enjoyed the Rocky films. If not, then obviously it is not educational enough as a sporting film.
It doesn't have to be. It just has to be good. We're going to move on because we could debate this all night. And this is not back with the brackets. We're arguing live on air now. Let's move on.
Okay, I was going to go and say, if I wanted a Rocky film sequel, I would want it to involve the son of Ivan Drago.
Okay.
Because that would be fun.
And I also want Robert Tepper soundtrack Oh God, what else is on that album? Just every artist, just come back and do Creed 2. I will be a happy Rocky fan. We've got some news to add in here that's not on the plan, but some Batman news. Now, this has definitely got my interest. So, Matt Reeves, the director for the upcoming Batman standalone movie, also the director of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes, which is out next week, has talked a little bit about his influences for this film and has referred to many of his influences for this film coming from Christopher Nolan's trilogy. In an interview with Yahoo, he said, "What I love that Christopher Nolan did was that he took the genre seriously. I think the other thing that I really admire in what Nolan did was knowing what it was to make a big studio film, which often can fall into that sense of committee filmmaking, where there's an anonymity to the point of view of the film. I think ultimately what he's trying to say there is that the studio can get a lot of control there, but for somehow he may manage to get his own style across and tell a compelling story." He continued to say he was comparing his take on the Batman films with his take on War for the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes with the character of Caesar. And he said that, "I think that the metaphors of both of these franchises, Batman and Planet of the Apes, enable you to tell stories that have deep emotional resonance. That's actually what excites me about it. It's interesting because I was obsessed with both as a child, and yet there is something potentially very adult about what you can explore under the cover of that fantasy. That is what draws me to it, and that's what I'm excited about." He's also got on record and said that this one's going to be a lot more emotional as well, which is kind of tied to what he said there. This has made me very happy. I definitely think that this film's in good hands now. I was really looking forward to Ben Affleck directing, but as he said, he didn't have enough time with actually having to play Batman, do the workout routine for that, pen the script, direct it. It was too much for him to handle. But as directors go, I'm very happy that Matt Reeves has got the directorial job. I love Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. War for the Planet of the Apes looks phenomenal. Every time I see the trailers for that, I'm really looking forward to that next week. It might actually be one of my favorite films of the year if it is good. I'm liking all the stuff he says here. For what I think of the Nolan trilogy, I think that Batman Begins is fantastic and probably the best one of the trilogy. I love Dark Knight. I think it's a phenomenally made movie, and everyone knows my thoughts on The Dark Knight Rises. I can see what he's saying. I hope he doesn't go too realistic with this, because although I don't like the characterization of Batman from Batman v Superman, I like that they're keeping it in this realistic but still heightened and comic booky world.
Is it bad?
And I hope
is it bad that now I've seen Green Lantern, the terrible Ryan Gosling film? No, not Ryan Gosling. Sorry, Ryan Reynolds film. That I can't imagine another Green Lantern film that doesn't look like that.
Like really CGI and fakey looking, and the world.
I try and close my eyes and think of a Green Lantern film, and all I'm seeing is him with a CGI mask on, with a CGI lamp.
No, you can give him a real lamp, and you can give him a real costume. That won't break the bank to do that.
Can we give him a really kind of beaten up lamp or something like that? It doesn't need to look shiny and brand new. I mean, this is the DC Dark Universe, or whatever they want to call it. This can be really kind of gritty and kind of dark, and yeah, that's just Batman vs Superman, isn't it?
Yeah.
That didn't go very well, did it? No.
What are your thoughts on the whole Matt Reeves comments on the Batman?
I feel like this film might become a shambles. I loved the Dark Knight trilogy. I really did. I think that Ben Affleck can play a suitable Batman. Suitable being the key word there. Not seriously good, not seriously bad. It's in the middle ground. But at the same time, a project that he wanted to film and which would become a passion project is turning into maybe a copycat film, which I don't like.
And at this point, one of my biggest criticisms with Man of Steel is that it still felt like Nolan's Batman trilogy. A lot of the same creative people from that film were mixed with Man of Steel, and I wanted Man of Steel to be something new, to be a reboot of it.
Okay, here's the thing. We've got Wonder Woman now. That's great. But Wonder Woman still didn't fix the key issue of DC films. in Wonder Woman,
That
there
shit.
was that, oh,
No, I loved Wonder Woman.
that there isn't enough color in the films, and it takes itself a bit too seriously. Sure, we want a bit of fun in the film. That's always good. It's a comic book film. Unless you're going for the full-on dark and gritty angle, and you're basing it off comic books like Old Man Logan, which still has some moments where you kind of chuckle or laugh. At the same time, yeah, it's a tough one. It really is. I feel like there are too many superhero films at the moment. They're trying to be different by being darker, and it doesn't work because it doesn't work itself as a film. If they try and be lighter, they're being too much like Marvel, and it falls into that generic, formulaic film after another churned mill. There isn't really a good middle ground at this present moment in time. For a film to truly work, they just need to spread out the release schedule and just wait, I feel.
Well, I mean, they're waiting just the right amount of time, I think. And why I don't have a problem with this one being dark is because it's Batman, a character who is meant to be dark. The problem that's come before is trying to make characters that aren't inherently dark brooding. Yeah. Superman is not a dark, brooding character. He can be written that way, but he's the Captain America kind of character. He's the patriotic Boy Scout, truth, justice, freedom, and the American way. That is Superman. And the problem with these films is not that they're too dark. It's not that they're too serious. The problem is a complete lack of understanding of the characters that they're making their films about, and a complete lack of actual filmmaking. There's no scenes in these films. There's a great video on the internet. I can't remember what it's called.
Chris, and yet Lego Batman was one of the funniest films of this year.
Well, this is the thing with Batman. Batman can be done comedically very well with like the 60s Batman, or as you said, Lego Batman. He can be done seriously very well. With these films, they need to make it serious, and it seems like with Justice League, they're throwing quips and one-liners in there, and I hope they don't do too much of that with the Batman.
Here's the thing. What I've seen from Justice League so far is they're throwing in quips, they're throwing in one-liners, but every single scene looks like it's nighttime, it's dark, and it's horrible and grey.
And it's more CGI bad guys in like an abandoned parking lot somewhere.
It feels like irony in that sense that they go and try and make something lighter in the film, and it's the comedy, not the gradient of the lens.
Well, you know, it's Zack Snyder's last film, so hopefully with him out of the picture now, and we can get some talent in, like with Patty Jenkins with Wonder Woman, we can actually get some good movies made for the DC universe now, and I really hope that the Batman is one of those. Moving on to other DC news now, Rupert Wyatt has been linked to possibly directing or working on Green Lantern Corps movie. He directed Rise of the Planet of the Apes, so it's kind of sticking with that Planet of the Apes family, with a rumored release date of 2020. Again, I loved Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Rupert Wyatt's done a bunch of other movies that I've enjoyed as well. So I'd be interested to hear see his take on Green Lantern. Hopefully he can inject a bit of life into it, and also maturity with the character to distance itself from the oh god, Ryan Reynolds one. I forgot his name there too.
I genuinely still can't imagine it. I can't even see him in the Justice League. I just see that CGI mask.
No, well, you're just thinking of that bad movie, and I think that a lot of people will still remember that movie, but hopefully by 2020, people will hopefully have forgotten it a little bit and see him more as Deadpool now. Is
that enough of a grace period between films?
I think it's, well, if Spider-Man can get 2 reboots.
Yeah, I know, but we're all saying we're all saying that it's quite rushed for the Spider-Man to have like 2 reboots.
I think it's fine with Green Lantern. I really do. And it's a world and a character and a universe that could be really interesting and really well made if done well. I did see a little bit of news as well, and I don't know if this is confirmed or not. I did see it in like a news article on my Facebook that the tone they want to go with for the Green Lantern Corps movie is kind of like a buddy cop thing like Lethal Weapon, which is not the tone of Green Lantern at all and should never be made like Lethal Weapon. So it seems like they don't have a plan. Maybe I don't think that's been confirmed or anything, but I did see that news and it did concern me a little bit.
Do these guys even read the comics?
Apparently fucking not, because all they need...
Okay, here's the question. Do they read the comics specific to the film they're making instead of reading the comics?
Yeah. Listen, DC, if you're listening to this, Warner Brothers, this is what you have to do. You take your character... You take the most iconic story of that character and you make it for the big screen. You can make a few changes here and there. I know that the mediums won't work, but you take the story and you take the characterization and you make it into a fucking movie. It's not difficult.
with a lot of these films, it's almost, and this includes Marvel as well, sometimes it just looks like they've looked at the first page or a page bio of the character without actually reading into them.
Yeah.
And it annoys me because you're just getting the character so wrong. And it pisses off fans and it pisses off casual viewers, because casual viewers can obviously see that something is wrong here, because what the character looks like and what the character is doing action-wise and what they're saying are two completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to Ryan Gosling being strongly rumored to play the new Willy Wonka. I didn't even know there was going to be another Willy Wonka film being made.
It's going to be a prequel, apparently, because
oh, God.
Everyone wanted to know how Willy Wonka got his chocolate factory and the Oompa Loompas, right? Which is explained in the fucking book, how he got the Oompa Loompas, and was shown in the Tim Burton film. And even Tim Burton tried to do like a prequel thing with, you know, Christopher Lee in there, and that he was a neglected child and he had like a tumultuous relation. That's not the word. Turbulent relationship with his dad. And that was the least interesting stuff in Tim Burton's film, was the Johnny Depp stuff.
Can I quickly go ahead and say, oh my God, why? Oz the Great and Powerful.
Yeah.
Being a prequel to The Wizard of Oz was not received well. Was really not received well. It was noted down to be a misplaced film that didn't know what it wanted to be, including the storyline, which is really bad. This could be it again. And I don't even see Ryan Gosling. I can see him playing Razzle Dazzle, but I don't see him playing a mad genius chef who works with chocolate. Especially
if this is meant to still be in the same continuity as the 70s movie.
Or whether it's going to be in continuity with the Tim Burton movie. That's what we're asking.
No, because I mean, he's going to be nothing like. If anything, he's going to be more like Gene Wilder. I take that back, because those words almost stuck in my mouth. That no one can be like Gene Wilder. He was that character. He was fucking phenomenal as Willy Wonka. Regardless of what you think of that movie, his performance in that film was tremendous. And I don't see Ryan Gosling as it. If they did want to do another remake of Willy Wonka, I'd quite like to see it in the similar vein to Steven Spielberg's BFG. If they wanted to do a kind of Roald Dahl, I don't want to use the phrase cinematic universe again, but it's thrown around so many times nowadays. If they did want to do a Roald Dahl cinematic universe in the kind of visual style of BFG, I might be fine with that, because there are a lot of great Roald Dahl books out there, and Willy Wonka's one of the best ones. And with, I don't want them to do too much CGI, but in that kind of heightened look to the film, there's a lot you could do, especially if they ever did get to the sequel, The Great Glass Elevator, where they go to fucking space. But I don't see Ryan Gosling as it.
To be honest, I'm still waiting for a Danny Champion of the World film.
They did. They
did?
With Jeremy Irons and his real life son, who played Danny.
No way.
Robbie Coltrane was in it as well. It's a great film.
When was this released? Oh, 1989.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The great film. Well, it is in my mind. When I was in year 3 at school, we read that book and then we watched the movie over the course.
Can we get a remake of that film? Is there any properties that haven't been made a film? Have they made a Twitches film?
Which film? Sorry.
The Twits.
The Twits. Did they do an animated one of that on TV, a made-for-TV movie? They've done SEO Trot. They've done
The Witches,
Matilda.
Matilda,
James the Giant Peach.
James the Giant Peach.
Oh God, there's probably a lot more that they've done. There's a lot of short stories that Roald Dahl did as well, or shorter books. I don't think that. I think George's Marvelous Medicine they did for TV. I don't think they've done Giraffe and the Pelly and Me. There's a lot they still haven't done, and I'd quite like to see. I'd even like to see like an animated universe.
They did Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah, that's another one.
They did that very well. In fact, really enjoyed that. I'm
The
just
point
having
is, there's a lot more they can do. I'd like to see them in a similar vein, either to the BFG film that came out with Steven Spielberg, or even just kind of do an animated one and make the animation look like the. Oh God, who's the guy who did the illustrations for Roald Dahl books? Is it Quentin Blake?
Quentin Blake, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I basically said everything on that bit of news. And the other bit of news as well is that the last bit of news to round us out today, Close Encounters of the Third Kind is set to get a cinematic re-release for its 40th anniversary. I've only seen that movie once, and I seem to not really, because it was hyped up so much, I didn't really love it as much as everyone else did, but you kind of coast until that ending with the UFO and the do. You kind of coast to that bit. That bit's phenomenal. Yeah. I'll definitely check it out on the big screen, though, because I love seeing these older films on the big screen. If it's going to get a remaster or whatever it is, just to see films like that on the screen in today's days, just fantastic.
See, I fall into the trap of I've seen that film recently, and it may sound bad, but if I've seen a film recently which I'm not overly excited to see again, I'm probably not going to go and see it in cinema again. Purely because usually I run with films on like a 3-4 year cycle. If I see a film which I love, I'll obviously watch it on repeat. But those odd films, I'll go back in like 3 or 4 years' time. I'll be just like, yeah, I remember that film. Let's watch that again. I remember that being okay. The film which I believe is next to hit me up on that is probably Joy from the Oscars a few years ago, or the Oscar films from a few years ago. Should we move on to trailer talk? There weren't really that many big ones this week. There was one for Borg versus McEnroe, a film about the Borg versus McEnroe 1980 Wimbledon final. The key thing here being that Shia LaBeouf is playing McEnroe. I think this is a perfect casting. Wildly erratic actor for a wildly erratic character. From the trailer, he plays him very well. He has the accent on point. He has the mannerisms quite well done as well. As a tennis fan and as a fan of these kind of films, this looks very good. I really like the look of this.
You're the tennis guy on the channel. You know all about that sport. You know all the ins and outs of it. I don't know these people. I don't know the story behind it, so I'm going this complete casual viewer. It looks like it's definitely taking itself very seriously with this biographic. But I like the casting. I like Shia LaBeouf. I've actually defended Shia LaBeouf in quite a lot of his movies. I think he's a very naturalistic actor. I think he can be a very good actor. He's just picked some questionable projects over the years, which, you know, he's picked some big projects, so it's no fault of his own. I don't know whether I'm excited for this movie because it does seem very dry. It does seem like it's made for people that are aware of the story. It's interesting with the casting, though. I mean, you've got Stellan Skarsgård in there. You've got a big Swedish cast in there. And then Shia LaBeouf's in there too.
You've got the main character playing Bjork, who's Swedish, obviously. And you've also got him actually speaking in Swedish throughout quite a lot of the film.
Which is a big thing because I hate when films like have characters speaking English with like a Swedish lilt to their accent. Just the fact that they've got subtitles is good.
It's
I
good.
love that.
It's really good. But yeah, there isn't really much more I can say about that other than it's a brilliant time to bring out the trailer being Wimbledon week. Same done last week with Battle of the Sexes. Another tennis-based film. More tennis-based films. I mean, the only one we've had really so far is Wimbledon, which I can see on my shelf, which is a rom-com and a subpar one. We have a La La Land 4K re-release at cinemas. Oh my god!
Get more money for it. They just want more money, don't they? They haven't quite gotten over the Oscar debacle.
Here's the thing, though. I haven't actually seen this in cinema yet, so I'm definitely going to try and see it.
No, you haven't. That's right. Yeah.
I was in Austria at the time, and I was trying to get. I definitely didn't illegally download it.
They're coming after you now, Tate, not me.
Hands and chains ready, guys. But seriously, if I was allowed to vote for it for the best film of the year, it would be still #1 right now. Truly one of the greatest cinematic spectacles which I haven't actually seen in the cinema in years. I mean, it's phenomenal, and we've had a lot of debate on the channel this week.
Oh God, yeah.
To ask whether it is a good film or not, with myself and Chris saying, yeah, it's a brilliant film, an amazing film, brilliant cinematography. It's influential within the world of film, and George saying it's not as good as Transformers 5, which really does. It gets to me. It really does. Those two films should not even be on the same scale with what I've heard about Transformers 5. So, Chris, if you want to weigh in on
that. Transformers 5, I went on record and said, and I still believe it now, is the worst film I've seen in my life. And believe me, I have seen some doozies in my life. And Transformers The Last Knight, directed by Michael Bay, is the worst offender of those movies.
I might have to go see it then.
But yeah, I don't know whether I'll see. I saw La La Land a ridiculous amount of times at the cinema. I've got one of those cards from my local cinema where you literally pay like a set amount of money a month and you can go as many times as you want. And I think I probably clocked in La La Land about 5 times. If it had gone to 6 or beyond, it would have broke even with Rogue One or surpassed it. Rogue One is still the movie I've seen most times in the theater. Other trailers that are coming out there, we had a official second trailer for a film called Geostorm. Now, the first trailer eluded me, but oh boy, did I watch official trailer 2. This is a natural disaster movie, action movie starring Gerard Butler, and it looks very much in the similar vein as 2012 or The Day After Tomorrow and films like that. Very CGI filled, very bombastic, very over the top with its action. This film looks awful. So bad. Gerard Butler is just turning in this before. He's just phoning this shit in. There's cringeworthy comedy in the trailer.
Okay, here's the question. When was Gerard Butler's last good performance?
His last good performance? Oh, God. I haven't seen London Has Fallen. I haven't seen Olympus Has Fallen, so I can't comment on those. I think the last thing I saw him in, which was genuinely great, was... oh God, what was that film where his wife gets murdered?
Law-Abiding Citizen.
That's the one. That was great. I did like that movie.
I think that came out a long time ago. Wait a sec. I
think it was probably like 2010, maybe 2011.
2009, maybe. 2009.
2009. I thought that was great. I haven't seen any films since then of his, so I can't comment on them as to what they were like, but this film is dreadful. And even if you're just going into this film for the spectacle of seeing natural disasters, which again is nothing new at this point, we've had countless films that have done it, the CGI looks so bad. It looks like PlayStation 1 level graphics all the way through. They are laughably bad. Now, I don't know if this is still in the early stages of the effects. Maybe they'll patch them up. I very much doubt it. They look truly abysmal. This looks like just a terrible film. Avoid it. It doesn't look like it's going to be so bad that it's good. It looks like it's just going to be an absolute slog to get through. So avoid Geostorm like the plague. Let's
continue the list of films that you should avoid. I can't even remember the name of the film. I haven't even got it written in front of me. But what was it, Mum's Night Out or something stupid like that?
Oh no, it was the dinner one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, Mum's Dinner Out or something stupid like that. It is a cast of 4 nobodies, and Adam Levine of Maroon 5 fame, and what looks like the new film that's coming out, Rough Night, mixed with Bridesmaids, witched with the first Emoji Movie trailer. So completely shite. Unforgivably shite.
It's called Fun Mom Dinner, by the way.
That is just such a bad title as well. Fun Mom Dinner?
Yes.
Really? It's just like, okay, let's describe this film. They're fun mums, okay. And they're going to have a dinner together. Okay. And in the trailer, I just had a deadpan face throughout the entire thing. Because it's meant to be a comedy, remember? And I don't even think anyone would laugh at anything in that trailer. Mm-hmm. It's god awful. So bad. It actually made me almost face desk to how bad it was. Just like the Emoji Movie trailer, which there was a small second one introducing the poop emoji.
Which, by the way, in my local cinema, they have a huge cardboard cutout of right outside the toilets. Very apt indeed. Stay classy, Tamworth. Stay classy.
Isn't it played by Sir Ian McKellen?
I don't know. I really hope not, because he doesn't need that on his credentials, does he? Let's be honest.
The poop emoji from Emoji Movie. It's played by a very famous character. Emoji. Who's it played by? Patrick Stewart. Ugh. It's played by Patrick Stewart.
So from Logan, he goes from Logan, turning in one of the best performances of his life, to the poop emoji. This guy's got range, folks. Go picture. Right.
That's the best supporting actor Oscar gone off the bat. And straight into the Razzies.
Let's move on to something that looks actually awesome. So you watched the Atomic Blonde official final trailer. Now I haven't seen this one. I was tempted to do a reaction on it, although I haven't done a reaction to the previous 2 trailers that come out for this thing. Needless to say, I am very much looking forward to this. Even if it is a John Wick clone, it's got Charlize Theron in it, and it's a John Wick clone. So even although it's completely derivative, it looks awesome.
I'm really looking forward to Jane Wick. It isn't a John Wick clone, though. And I want to point this out. Different story. It's set in the Cold War, for starters, at the fall of the Berlin Wall. Completely different to John Wick immediately. She isn't really an assassin like John Wick is. She's a spy. And she uses her credentials to try and find out a mole or rat. So really, it's taking the action from John Wick and applying it to Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Which is a phenomenal idea. And with the kind of 80s German vibe going on, I think it's going to be a brilliant film. Especially with James McAvoy coming in as the kind of sidekick character. I'm quite excited for this. It's an action film which I can look forward to this summer.
Yeah, and speaking of an action film I'm looking forward to this summer, the last trailer that I saw, there's been quite a lot this week, but we're not going to talk about them all like we did last time. That was a bit overkill. The Terminator 2 Judgment Day 3D re-release has been given an official second trailer. This one, unfortunately, has James Cameron talking over nearly all of it, though, saying 3D makes the film so much more immersive. Now people have the opportunity to see it again in glorious 3D, and it will change the viewing experience forever. This is a guy that's clearly just paid off to say things. For one, he completely endorsed Terminator Genisys, which was an absolute betrayal of the franchise, way more so than Terminator 3 or Terminator Salvation ever were. So he's just hyping up this film, saying people are going to get to see it for the first time in the theater, which is great. But I don't think the 3D is going to be a huge draw. He did say the company that are converting it into 3D, it's one of the best ones in the world, apparently, and that he's really impressed with the results. Of course, he's going to say that. I'm just going to see it so I can see my favorite action film of all time, one of my favorite, in my top 10 easily, on the big screen. I think that's going to be life-changing, seeing that on the big screen. I did really want to see the first Terminator re-release that came out about 2 or 3 years ago. I was working that day, I missed that one, and I've never forgiven myself for missing that one. So I am going to be there for Terminator 2. Cannot wait. Even though I've seen it countless times, seeing it on the big screen will be a way different experience. So,
okay, guys. So, yeah.
That'll do it for trailer talk.
Yeah. Let's. Oh, sorry. Who's taking George? Where are you? You need to take control. Okay, so I'll do box office breakdown. Chris, you can look forward to the week ahead with the weekend preview. Despicable Minions 3 comes in at number 1 with 75 million domestic, underperformed as it was expected to get 90 million plus. To be honest, Minions, the original Minions film, managed to get over $1 billion worldwide. I don't think this film will. With a 75 million domestic release, that I don't think it will. 240 worldwide. It's probably going to get close, but I don't think it'll get it. Maybe it's because Minions wasn't in the title. Maybe that's a formula that they're going to have to go with ahead, especially seen as, according to critics, which I've read up on, the 3 main Minions, which people love and have like photos of and shit like that, they aren't actually in the film. They have their own spin-off series, and they're keeping them separate from the Despicable Me series, which I have respect for Despicable Me for doing, instead of just using them as a cash cow, because they are the most popular characters.
Yeah.
Baby Driver enters in at number 2, 30 million in America after a 5-day opening weekend, 46 million worldwide. That has overperformed. I don't think Edgar Wright films have ever had such a big opening, especially on foreign soil. So that's a big success there. Hence why Sony want the sequel.
We want
they
more.
Really
we want more. That should be at number 1.
We want more, but keeping it low key means that it's going to become a sleeper hit, just like all the rest of Edgar Wright's films. Transformers 5 has dropped to 4th with 17 million, 430 worldwide, 330 international. Has it been released in China yet?
I don't believe so.
Yes, no, I think it was last week, wasn't it? We spoke about it, no?
Actually, yes, I think.
May have.
I kind of like put all news about Transformers 5 out of my mind after witnessing it and doing a review on it. So
all we can say is that is woefully underperforming, which is always a good thing.
But you know, we've still got 14 Transformers ideas. We've still got a Bumblebee spin-off coming out. Like it or not, the Transformers aren't going anywhere, Tate.
No. And finally, we have Wonder Woman and Pirates of the Caribbean 5 crossing 700 million mark, which is just to end the box office breakdown news.
And
Chris,
also, before we move on, Wonder Woman has now become the highest-grossing DCU film, surpassing Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Suicide Squad. It is king among the DC films right now, and it will be absolutely hilarious if it stays that way when we get Justice League come out. But you know what? It deserved it because it was a fantastic movie and definitely one of my favorite from this year. So to conclude the show now, we're going to talk about weekend preview of what we expect is going to be number 1 at the box office. We're expected to have Spider-Man Homecoming enter at number 1. It's expected to get 190 to 210 million worldwide debut. And here, George has left us a very fun meme at the end of the document that we're reading off, saying that Spider-Man 3 had a 380 mil opening weekend with a picture of J.K. Simmons' laughing face from Spider-Man 2. Yeah. I think it's going to be at number 1, but it'll have a big drop off with War for the Planet of the Apes, and then.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Then we don't really have much in August, do we? That's what we've been saying. I know that we've got Cars coming out as well. Oh, Dunkirk. Oh, obviously. Yeah, sorry. That's going to be at number 1 when that comes out. So I don't think Spider-Man's going to be sticking around for long. I think it will make a decent amount of money, and they've already confirmed whether or not it's going to make a lot of money. They've already confirmed they're doing Spider-Man Homecoming 2, 3. He's going to be an Avengers, so they're going to keep cranking the Spider-Man films out. So it doesn't really matter how much money it makes. And that brings us to the end of our Cinema Savvy News Show. So be sure to comment, subscribe. Let us know what you thought of all this news. We've talked Fantastic Beasts 2, X-Men, countless superhero movies. So please get the comments going. Let's get a conversation going about all these upcoming movies. In terms of what's coming up on the channel, tomorrow, earlier than usual, we're going to have our review for Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm seeing the film tomorrow. George has already seen it.
I'm seeing it tomorrow as well.
That's going to be a really interesting one as well. And actually, we should have had Spider-Man 3 review out today. Unfortunately, because George was away, we haven't had time to record that one. So hopefully we can get that out before we get to Spider-Man Homecoming tomorrow. So look out for that as well. Links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram are all in the description down below. Check those out. We've got countless new shows coming out now. We're almost at daily content. So please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon, like, comment, share, subscribe. All that good stuff. And until next time, we'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching.